Good morning, everybody. Stormsinger has released with Update 56 the new archetype for Bard. And alongside Stormsinger, there's also been a bit of a controversial topic, also on the same subject as Bard, which is the change to Sonic Blast. For those of you that are unaware, Sonic Blast used to be an area of effect level 1 spell for Sorcerer, Wizard, and Bard. It dealt a d6 plus 1 in an area of effect. It had a will save on it, and if the monster made their will save, they didn't get stunned, because it had a stun on it. Well, it daze, but for the most part, it worked pretty similarly, especially in the early levels, just stopping every monster in their place whenever you cast the spell. Now, this spell had many features that made it very, very strong. It had extremely good range, a fast projectile that tracked incredibly well, so even if monsters were moving, you would still hit them. It was area of effect, effectively the same area of effect of Fireball, however, it only cost 4 spell points. And not only did it have a secondary effect of the daze, but also if the monster made their save, they didn't reduce the damage by half. So if you had no DCs whatsoever, it would still do the same amount of damage. This resulted in Sonic Blast being basically one of the best spells for the early part of the game, and even through some of the later parts of the leveling process, just because of how much damage it does and how consistent it is. And Standing Stone Games sought to rectify this, or at least what they said is that it was supposed to be a single target spell and not be an area of effect spell, and so they changed it to single target. Now, a lot of people are very upset about this change, so I thought I would give my opinion and also some of my testing information so that you guys can maybe use that to help form your own. In my opinion, Sonic Blast was definitely one of the best spells you could possibly take and absolutely overperformed. You could basically just take Sonic Blast on a Sorcerer and use it all the way from 1 to 20. On a Bard, it just completely cleaned up most of the early leveling process. And on a Wizard, it was pretty good too. In fact, if you check out the beginning of the playthrough that me and some of my friends did of going 1 to 20 on the first day of hardcore with all wizards, all you can hear is Sonic Blast because that's the only spell that we're casting. It doesn't matter what our stats are or what the defenses of the monsters are, it does full damage, so it didn't matter. So in my opinion, Sonic Blast was absolutely overperforming and definitely needed to get nerfed in some capacity. It basically made it so you didn't take any of the other first level spells ever because there was no reason to. Why would I take Shocking Grasp when Sonic Blast does only a tiny fraction less damage, but it's AoE and ranged and it's a stun? There's basically no reason to take any other spell, so there needed to be an adjustment made. However, does the adjustment work well? Kind of. Making it single target definitely does make it a lot less useful. Not useless, especially considering if you take it on a Bard, you still have the spell-like ability that is very valuable, meaning that the actual ability is still quite strong for dealing damage to an individual monster, which some people have been sounding off and saying that that's unimportant, but Bards have always struggled with single target damage, and just being able to quickly kill a boss, an important target like a Reaper or a Kobold Shaman or some type of dangerous champion, it's still useful for that. However, it's definitely lost a lot, if not all of its value on Wizard, and it's still kind of okay if you're playing as like a Lightning Sorcerer or an Air Savant, but yeah, it's definitely not as good. Turning it into a single target spell definitely took most of the teeth out of it, which is not to say that it's absolutely terrible. I just really wouldn't take it on anything other than like a Sorcerer or a Bard with a spell-like ability, but it's definitely not useless and it has its place. However, for all intents and purposes, they kind of did remove this spell from the game and from general use. In my opinion, the nerf that I would have done is just make it so that the saving throw that you make, if the monster makes it save, it takes half damage as opposed to still taking full, and possibly just turning it into a reflex save so that way it still works on evasion. However, with the nerf that we have right now, it is what it is and we have to move forward. So that becomes the question, did Standing Stone Games kill Bard? And the answer to that question is no. Bard is still very, very, very strong. As it turns out, Bards just happen to have really good spells anyway, so it doesn't really matter. On top of that, Stormsinger is so incredibly strong that I stopped using Sonic Blast very quickly and just used all the Stormsinger abilities. However, that doesn't talk to the main point of the early levels. Yes, from levels 1, 2, and 3, you will absolutely notice the difference without Sonic Blast. Your character is going to be much slower for the early leveling process, and it's going to take a lot longer. However, it's still fairly doable. Sonic Blast gets the job done, and you can just use the Shadow Blade from Fate Arc Illusionist for your first couple of levels, get to level 3, get your Shout spell-like ability, and once you have the Shout spell-like ability, it's smooth sailing from there. Shout spell-like ability combined with Soundburst for most of the leveling process into Shout if you're playing as a regular Spellsinger, grabbing the tier 5 Horn of Thunder, and then just alternating back and forth between your different spell-like abilities, your character is going to be fine, especially with the updated Reverberate actually doing a ton of damage now. However, if you are not playing as a Spellsinger, but a Stormstinger instead, which is exactly what I played, it's the exact same thing. You get to level 3, you get Shout, the game gets easy. Then you get to around level 6, you get Snowball Swarm spell-like ability as well, and now you got Snowball Swarm and Shout, you just cast back and forth with Maximize Empower and Quicken, no monsters can stand against you, and the game is now in Ultimate Easy Mode. So, did this destroy Bard? Absolutely not. Bard is still very, very strong. However, don't just take my word for it. I played this character on stream, and I decided to find out how bad it would actually be. So on Hardcore League, I managed to level this character in about 14 hours from 1 to 20, and I decided to do the first few areas of the game completely solo, and pretend I'm like a First Life character. Don't run around with the Feydark Illusionist blade, just try to use my spells, try to use the base weapons that the game gives you. And yeah, it was slow, but I was still able to kill one of the hounds that spawned, I was still able to kill all the monsters and all the quests that I went through, I didn't really run out of spell points, so at the end of the day, it's a little slower for the early leveling process, but in my opinion, I don't think that Bard was destroyed. I don't think that Bard is dead. I think that Bard is very strong. And Stormsinger is kind of very, very strong. Now, you're probably here for the point of like, how good is Stormsinger? But let me just give you the context. Bard Spellsinger was a very, very powerful character, giving you crowd control, damage, buffs, some of the most powerful healing over time effects in the game, spell point restoration. But the one thing that Stormsinger or Spellsinger was really missing was single target damage. You would just AoE through every single quest, blasting monsters in big groups, and you'd feel fine until you got to the final boss, and then you're fighting some monster that has many, many, many thousands of hit points, and it just takes forever. But with Stormsinger, you just hit him with Iceberg and Thunderstroke, and it completely removes that problem. This character absolutely demolished bosses during the leveling process, and I've been talking to people who've been playing it at level 32, and they have that same realization that they can just blow everything up. Stormsinger is kind of like a better Bard. Now, it's not necessarily the same. Obviously, if you go up the Stormsinger tree, you're not going to be getting Mass Hold Monster. You're all not going to be getting the spell point restoration effect. However, in general, I think that the Stormsinger tree is much, much better for the late game, whereas Spellsinger is much better for the early game. The spell point restoration effect from the tier 5 of Spellsinger is super strong, giving you 1 spell point back per second. So when you're at the early game and you have like 700 spell points, getting 1 spell point back per second is really, really valuable. But when you're at the end game and you have like 4,000, yeah, it's not really moving the needle at that point, especially considering you're going to see a shrine every 4 to 5 minutes. So there's no real reason for you to try to get the extra 200 or so spell points you would get back. So you just go Stormsinger and blow everybody up. Stormsinger made an absolute dream leveler once I got to level 3, and so my recommendation to you is if you're worried about the slow leveling process, if you're playing on the regular server, it's just going to take a little while if you play by yourself, or you can open up a group and have some people join you for Korthos or for the Harbor, or just grab some Hirelings, because I find oftentimes Hirelings will just get a bunch of damage done on top of that. And if you're playing on Hardcore League, again, same thing. You don't have to solo. I did, just to prove a point, because it was not too hard, just a little slow. But on Hardcore League, there's even more people doing the early levels, so just group up with somebody like you're a regular spellcaster because you can't do anything for levels 1, 2, and 3. Get to level 3, get spell-like ability Shout, and then just cruise control the rest of the entire video game like it's not even there. While I do think changing the Sonic Blast to single target, maybe not the best change they've ever added into the game, it definitely does not destroy Bard or the Bard class. The character class is working just fine, and Stormsinger is fantastic and so fun to play. I was stoked to get this character all the way up to level 20, and the only reason I didn't take it all the way to level 30 is because I got to do a Dark Apostate for another video so I can do kind of an analysis, and then going to be going back, taking that Stormsinger all the way up to 30, and maybe shoving it through some Reaper groups on Hardcore. Should be pretty fun. But if you want to know exactly how I put this together, let me pass it over to me with the build. Here you have it, the Kitty Cat Stormsinger, the Thunder Cat, a character that is perfectly designed to do as much damage as possible and kind of do Bard things. And so I have Sonic Blast nerfed Rip Bard. Of course, this is a joke. Sonic Blast did receive a nerf, but don't worry about it. Your character will be very, very, very strong. The first few levels might be a little bit of a struggle, but the second you get to 3 to 4, you got your AoEs and Shout, you got Sound Burst, and it's just like butter. That's when the scissors just start to glide. So again, a little bit slower, but don't worry, your Bard's going to be perfectly fine. The way I set up this character is 16 Constitution. maxing out charisma and charisma into every level that I could, and then just enough strength so I could carry just a couple items. If you don't happen to have, 32-point build, you only have a 28. Just keep the strength at 8, con 16, charisma, or high charisma, and then 10 intelligence, and use like bull strength potions to keep your strength up, just so you can carry equipment and things in quests. As far as the skills go, it's very straightforward. They all fit on screen. Use magic device, spellcraft, perform, jump, haggle, and balance. Jump is because you don't get the spell, and you need to be able to jump to cast spells because it's nice. Haggle is for the money. Perform you need for your bard abilities, and this gives you sonic spell power. Spellcraft because this gives you spell power for lightning and cold, which you also want to cast. Use magic device. I don't need to explain that one. Balance because it's just good all over the place. And then 1 point in tumble, which I took out of balance so I could tumble whenever I needed to. Important note, these skills are not representative of what your character actually can do. You can inspire yourself for extra bonuses and greater heroism, so your skills are usually a lot higher than the way that they actually look. As far as the feats go, this character grabbed all the important meta magics: Quicken, Maximize, and Empower. This character is loaded with spell-like abilities, and you want to be casting them constantly during the leveling process, which means that your character is going to be very, very inexpensively just demolishing your way through the entire landscape. So these were my first 3 feats, and I highly recommend them. However, after that, I broke it up just a little bit with a couple other feats. One feat you might want to consider taking is Force of Personality, which gives you your will saves based on your charisma. I didn't take that for hardcore, I just went for more health, but that's stupid, and you should definitely do that. However, I did take Toughness twice because this is Hardcore League, just to stay alive. On top of that, I also took these spellcasting feats, Evocation Focus and Greater Evocation Focus, because that was very, very important to my character. So I want to make sure I took that. So that's pretty much all the feats that I took right there. I did take the Evocation, Greater Evocation later. I took these at 12 and 15, whereas I took, the first 3 feats here, and then the 2 toughnesses I took at 9 and 18. As far as the spells go, honestly, the first few levels of lightning spells aren't that great. You get Shocking Grasp and you get Electric Loop. I didn't use either of them, and I don't recommend you do either. Shocking Grasp is actually not that bad as a first level spell, and it's probably better to have than Sonic Blast, if I'm being honest. So you could probably do that instead of Sonic Blast, but I just went with Sonic Blast. Shocking Grasp, now that I think about it, would make a better spell. Anyway, I only took Sunburst as my damage spell for level 2s, because it doesn't matter, and then I grabbed Lightning Bolt up here, and then moving on, we've got Shout, we got Ball Lightning, we get Chain Lightning. Now, the way the Stormsinger works is when you cast non-lightning spells, Cold and Sonic, you get extra lightning damage. So you might be wondering why I actually take these spells. And that's because they're insanely good. Ball Lightning does a massive amount of damage, and so does Chain Lightning. And you get a huge amount of lightning spell power just from the tree and for leveling up here yourself. So yeah, Chain Lightning was sitting for like 2,000 damage at level 18 and 19. So very, very good spells. You definitely want to take these ones. And then, of course, we got Iceberg and Thunderstroke. These are no-brainers, as well as Greater Shout, just kind of filling in. Grab heals when you can, and Sleet Storm. I actually have been using Sleet Storm, and I think it's quite good. I'll talk a little bit more about Sleet Storm in a bit, but I actually really like this one, because as a bard with your enhancement tree, I split up my points here with Spellsinger and Stormsinger, but I made sure to grab Inspiration, Melody, Frolic, because I think Inspiration, Melody, Frolic is really, really, really good. It gives everyone freedom of movement, so you don't have to worry about getting like held or knocked down or anything like that. But the second benefit is because you can give this to everybody by just putting your bard songs on them, it makes them all immune to Sleet Storm. So you can just whip Sleet Storm on the ground, and then your allies can just run through it, and there's absolutely no problem. This also slows monsters when they try to run through it, and you can get an enhancement here that makes it better. So when you cast spells at monsters inside the Sleet Storm, you actually get more Lightning Strike procs. I do not know how this works. I've been told it gives you a second 20% chance. I haven't used it yet. As you can see here, I didn't take it because it was the last thing to take. But I'm going to be testing it in epics as we go along. As far as the actual tree here, Spellsinger and Stormsinger, I went kind of the more glass cannon route. You don't really need anything out of Fade Arc Illusionist or Tabaxi. However, if you happen to own Fade Arc Illusionist, take Illusory Weapon at level 1, so you have the short sword, and just use the short sword to get yourself to level 3 or 4, and your character will be perfectly fine since you max out Charisma, so it's very, very, very strong. Now, if you don't own Fade Arc Illusionist, and you still want to play this character, you can use the Ember Rapier that you start with, or get a better one-handed weapon, or join a group to get yourself to level 3 or 4, but Fade Arc Illusionist does shore up to level 3 or 4 because you have access to this ability. Sonic Blast spell-like ability notwithstanding, it's like okay, but yeah, this will just get you to 3 or 4, and then you can unspec out of it, which is exactly what I did. Now, in the Stormsinger tree, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. There's a lot of stuff I didn't take. I'm going to be respecking, but most importantly, you want to make sure you're taking these spell-like abilities. I grabbed Sonic Blast, Reverberate, and Snowball Swarm. Reverberate was adjusted, so it's now not only a good damage spell, but it actually deals damage on its initial tick, which means that it's very useful to cast on any monster you want, so I will highly recommend using this one. On top of that, Cure Light Wounds spell-like ability is amazing for the early leveling process, especially on Hardcore League, given the fact that, like, you know, it's nice to have an instantaneous spell. I got the Quicken, I got the Maximize, I got the Empower, so I can just heal myself back to full in one button press. Now granted, as you level up, this won't be back to full, but it's still nice to have a almost zero cost heal that can come out right away. Now moving on, how do you spend your points in this tree and what order did you do? So for me, as I said, Fair Illusionist was right here. Then, by the time I got to level 3, I took everything out of every tree and I dumped it all into Spellsinger to get Shout. This Shout spell-like ability is all you really need. Once you get it, you just cast Shout, and then you wait 6 seconds, and you cast Shout again, you wait 6 seconds, you cast Shout again. This will blow up every single monster in your path. Once I had Shout here, and then Sonic Blast here, I got a few more points, and then I reset this tree, so I had Shout, Cure, and Sonic Blast here, and then I came up this tree, picked up Snowball Swarm, as well as Reverberate, and then grabbed the Snowball Swarm here, and then once I had Snowball Swarm, Shout, and Sonic Blast, I had so much damage, I could blow up everything. Nothing was standing in my way. So I just went up Spellsinger and got the Sustaining Song as well as Frolic, because I think these two abilities are too useful, especially for Hardcore League. Sustaining Song is one of the best abilities in Dungeons & Dragons Online, so this is obviously amazing. And then Frolic. So yeah, great abilities. However, after I did that, then I went and filled out the rest of the Stormsinger tree, came back, filled out the rest of Spellsinger, and then Tabaxi was the end of it, because it's just extra charisma, and it's not really necessary. Overall, this character's progression was really, really simple, and every time you get a new spell-like ability, so like when I got Horn of Thunder, major power boost, it felt like. When you got the healing song here, major power boost, because your character is now like just constantly regenerating, and so is everybody else. However, now that I'm in Epics, my actual plan is to respec these trees, get rid of Snowball Swarm, and Sonic Blast, and Cure Light Wounds. I don't need these spell-like abilities anymore. They don't do anything for my character, because Sonic Blast is a single target spell, and I don't need that anymore. A regular Spellsinger Bard will still use Sonic Blast in Epics, but I am a Stormsinger. If I want to do damage to a single target, I got Iceberg, I got Thunderstroke, so I don't need this spell anymore. So instead, I'm going to be getting rid of both of these, as well as Snowball Swarm. So instead of that, what am I going to be taking? I'll be putting Reverberate over here, instead of where it is in Stormsinger, and then I'm going to be changing this to Nyax Biting Cold, so I have 2 damage over time spell-like abilities I can throw out on bosses for extra single target damage. And on top of that, I'm going to be investing into Electrocution, as well as Pierce Electric Resistance, so that when monsters have a little bit of resistance, I can bypass that, as well as taking some of that out of the Draconic Incarnation tree for a lot more, and then Electrocution here for some more spell damage. So that's kind of what I'm going to be swapping these points into, and that's how I would do that. As far as the Epic Destinies go, haven't played it yet, but this is kind of what I'm looking at. Featsinger, Draconic Incarnation, and Primal Avatar. At least for the leveling purposes, I'm going to be going up Primal Avatar to get Evergreen. This gives you temporary spell points whenever you cast a spell. It says you have a chance to gain 100 temporary spell points. I don't know exactly how this works, but it goes off all the time. As long as you have this active, it's almost impossible to run out of spell points, especially if you cast a lot of spell-like abilities. So unbelievably powerful and good ability here. Out of Featsinger, of course, Harmonic Resonance is very, very good. Masquerade, which reduces the spell costs, are very, very good. And then finally, up here, you get Very, Very Vocal, which increases the damage of your Shout, Greater Shout, and Horn of Thunder by a lot. So I really want all of this stuff. At the very least, I'm going to be getting 23 points to get shouted out, as well as Hear My Voice Friend. However, since I would be using the Primal Mantle here, and then also using Shouted Out, I don't have a lot of points left over. So do I go up Primal to get more stuff, or maybe do I just go up Draconic Incarnation? My current plan is to go into Primal to pick up both Stormcatcher as well as Thundersnow. I think that Thundersnow is an incredibly powerful spell. You get to double the damage when you take this enhancement right here. So it becomes, what is this? It's 2d6s plus 4 because it's cold and lightning damage. So it's actually 4d6s plus 16 damage whenever you hit somebody with it. And because it counts as a cold spell and a lightning spell, it gets the bonus lightning caster levels and stuff from Stormsinger. And because it's a cold spell, it can cause your lightning strike from Stormsinger to activate on targets. So very, very cool ability. And it's not an epic strike, so you can just have this while also having like Draconic Breath here. I think I'm going to take Lightning Dragon Breath over one of the other ones because you might think that you want to take like maybe Cold Breath so that way it can proc the Lightning Strike. But I have more lightning spell-like ability, I have more lightning spell-like abilities or not spell abilities, more lightning spell power. If I'm using Dragon Breath, I'm trying to kill something. I don't need the extra little bit of damage, like the extra 4,000 from the lightning strike. I'm using it because I'm trying to do 30,000 with this ability. So I'll probably use Sitting My Points, spreading it with Featsinger, Primal Avatar, and Draconic Incarnation. I don't think I'm actually going to take a tier 5 here, at least for Hardcore League, because I honestly don't know. But I'm certainly going to want to get up here with the Shout. I'm certainly want to get Pull from the Wellspring. I'm certainly going to want to get the Primal Avatar upgrade stuff here. So honestly, I don't know. Might even just go like just taking these 4 cores and calling it a day. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm not quite there yet. And hopefully you'll be able to figure out as well. As far as itemization goes, again, these are all the things that I found while leveling on Hardcore League. I didn't use anything out of my bank. I never interacted with my bank except to put things into it because I wanted to see how this character would feel during the leveling process. So even for the early levels, I had no equipment and it was still fine. And again, this is Hardcore, so I got this item, I crafted it, the Magnetic Resonating Quarterstaff. This is the only item I farmed because I've never farmed one before, but it just seemed to make sense. You can get this out of Peril of the Planar Eyes. Flickering Steel for some extra defense. Dodge Parrying Boots, because those are pretty good. These gloves gives me healing amplification. Love that. Charisma 5 ring. This is my Charisma item here, so it does its best work. I have a Deathblock False Life 14 belt that I wore for a very long time. Awesome belt. Gave me some defense. Pulled this in Ravenloft, the Face Cloak. I don't need the intelligence, but the evocation and wizardry is very, very nice. Cardin's Eye. Did the Beholder in Prison of the Plains for this bad boy for the Resistance 5. Sheltering item. Just pulled that out of somewhere. I don't remember where. Feywild for devotion and healing lore, which is nice. And then we did Temple of Elemental Evil again. I think Temple of Elemental Evil is quite easy and a very, very good quest chain for level 8. So if you're on the regular servers, maybe not hardcore, but on regular, I would always incorporate it into your leveling path. Hardcore League, maybe not, but I am currently doing it on Hardcore League because it's the new thing. Lightning Lore, Wizardry, Spell Saves, Insightful Spell Sight, and then combine that with the armor that I also pulled with the Sapphire of Riposte inside of it with the resistance and the bonus to saves. So I got the set bonus. It feels pretty good. And then lastly, I bought this in the auction house, which was a Constitution 8 Fortitude 6 pair of bracers. Makes my character feel pretty good. So overall, pretty easy to gear for, pretty easy to play. And as I said, you just kind of run around. I just hit my spell-like abilities. Shout, Snowball Swarm, Horn of Thunder, Sonic Blast, Reverberate. And then when I need to kill people, just drop an Iceberg on them, drop a Thunderstroke on them, and it feels super, super good. So really fun character. Can't wait to play some more Stormsingers. And I'm very curious to how this character is going to feel when I do it again. But instead of doing a Tabaxi and a First Life character, I do my Completionist, Racial Completionist on like a Tiefling. I don't know. It could be a lot of fun. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. So thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe that like button and smash that video. We'll be back next time with hopefully something about the Dark Apostate, because I've been itching to get the word out about how good or bad it is, because I don't know, and I don't think anybody else does either. So eat your leafy greens, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.